Welcome to Outta Pocket. Here's your host, Michael Davis.
Hey, everyone. How do you respond with a supersized weekend? You respond by getting out of pocket. I'm your host, Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. I'm joined by one of my co-hosts from the Cat Cave, Shannon Smith at podcast_Smitty. I'm joined by also, for the first time ever, you've seen them one by one, but now we've got both Burton brothers on Out of Pocket with Michael Davis from Everything College Basketball, and they do incredible work. I got Peyton and I got Josh, and it's going to be an absolutely phenomenal show. We are supersized. We were supersized on Friday afternoon, and after the weekend we had between the Final Four, some breaking college basketball news late in the night, and of course the WrestleMania recap from this past weekend, we had to go supersized. So we're a full hour. You hopefully are joining us live at noon today, but hopefully you have an hour lunch break to join us on the show. Quick shout out to usual producer Desmond Johnson. He's not on the show today, taking care of some family stuff. So excited for you, Des. I'm glad you get spent with your family. And so we're going to make you proud because we have a packed show beginning with breaking news. John Calipari has left Kentucky and is now going to coach Arkansas. This is mind-boggling news. Now, usually in Dez's spot, I have Josh Burton from Everything College Basketball. You see the Kentucky hat right there. So I got to ask Josh first, what was your reaction to having your head coach, the one who's built that program up? Now Calipari's leaving, and you guys are left without a coach. What's your initial reaction to this news?
Well, this has been a divorce that's been coming for a long time. During the course of the year, I wrote an article back in like January, February. It was January because it was after the loss, or sorry, February was after the loss to Gonzaga. Wrote this article and basically detailed that it's a time for divorce back then. And then you fast forward to March, we get bounced in the first round by Oakland. It's definitely time for a divorce. And then Mitch Barnhart, the AD of Kentucky, decides to keep Cal. One would assume in part because just paying that huge buyout would have been astronomical numbers, even for a place like Kentucky who's got a lot of money. But it's a deeper issue than that with boosters. Cal had kind of stopped communicating, didn't have a great relationship with some of the biggest boosters, the Kraft family. There's a lot that goes into it. So I was kind of surprised when he got brought back. Then when he said he was coming back, you think, okay, we'll give it another go. One final run, right? And then now all of a sudden he's leaving for Arkansas. But I'm here to tell everybody, college basketball fans alike, and especially talking to my Big Blue Nation, it's going to be okay. Peyton and I did 40 minutes at 1 a.m. last night talking about this breaking news. Kentucky is, make no mistake about it, Kentucky has been, is now, and will always be the best job in the sport. It's not, you take, no, hold on now. You don't take my fandom out of it. You listen to media, you listen to Hall of Fame coaches. There's a reason Rick Pitino, who left for Boston, the Boston Celtics in 1997, has said till that day, ever since he got fired from Boston, that he should have never left Kentucky. Kentucky's Camelot. It's not just Rick Pitino. Hall of Fame coaches, players, media. Kentucky's the best job when you factor in tradition. They've won. They're only school to ever win 5 national championships with 5 different coaches. They've won in the 40s. They've won in the 50s. They didn't win a title in the 60s, but they won a lot. They won a title in the 70s. The 80s, they made some Final Fours, kind of tailed off at the end with it. But even Eddie Sutton before probation was winning. Rick Pitino dominated the 90s. Tubby Smith won a title. I mean, so Kentucky is the best job. You're fooling yourself if you don't think so. This is going to be okay. We know Cal's faults there at the end. Roster construction, his stubbornness. It's the sport's changing and he's not adapting. So Kentucky, they're going to have a who's who of people that they're going to talk to, and we're going to get the right guy, and it's going to be okay. Kentucky basketball will continue to be Kentucky basketball. I'm not worried. I think at the end of the day, this is best for all parties involved. Arkansas is getting a coach that's going to reinvigorate them and getting them a lot of money. He's going to be motivated, that being John Calipari. So it's great for Arkansas. It's great for Cal to get out because he wasn't wanted anymore, and he mentioned as much. And it's going to be great for Kentucky because we were ready for a fresh start. So this is one of those weird scenarios where it's a win-win-win for everybody involved. But trust me, Kentucky is going to be Kentucky, and you'll find out again next year.
Well, with all due respect, Josh, you are an ACC country. We'll have to debate another time because we have a packed show. What's the best job in all of college basketball? Because
there's no debate. I love you, Michael. There's no debate. You look at
there is a debate.
No, there's not.
There is a debate.
There is not. You look at history books and talk to people who have been around this a long time, way longer than any of us. Kentucky is Camelot. They are the best job, and they will continue to be the best job.
That might be out of pocket. You guys can comment on our YouTube channel, our Facebook, our Twitter, wherever you may be watching. Be a part of the show. Trevor Everett from the Two Pointers podcast agrees that it's a beautiful breakup. Everyone won. Derek's probably questioning that Kentucky take. But Peyton, you said you were, up really late last night talking about this breaking news with Josh. What was your initial reaction to anyone who hasn't watched it? And where do you think Kentucky goes from here? Because players like Aaron Bradshaw are starting to enter the transfer portal.
So, yeah, I was up till like 4 a.m. from recap and watching all of the WrestleMania Talks press conference. And obviously this Coach Cal news dropped late last night. So I was up to like 4 a.m. just collecting my thoughts on this. And my initial thought was the initial thought I had to Josh when we originally talked about it on the phone. And then we did our 40-minute live video on our Facebook group. It's really bad timing. It's really bad timing. The timing of this could not come at a worse time because, for one, there's a dead period in the transfer portal. Even though Aaron Bradshaw just entered the portal, there was a dead period. Not a lot was happening with coaching searches and players going to the draft, blah, blah, blah. There wasn't a lot that's happening this week. And this is supposed to be the pinnacle of college basketball. Tonight, we're crowning a new champion. Either we're getting one of these two storylines commence. Either Purdue's going to win their first title or UConn's going to be the first team since Florida to go back-to-back. And it doesn't matter what happens in that game. I'm a Louisville fan, by the way. I'm wearing my Louisville stuff here, and I hate that I have to take out for Kentucky here, but it's the best job in college basketball history. There is no debate whatsoever, and that's coming from a guy who despises this Kentucky program. But even I know that is the number one job. And Coach Cal leaving, it doesn't matter what happens tonight in the national title game. This is the biggest story in college basketball. It's going to overshadow the national title game, which is ridiculous to even think about. It's going to happen. So my initial thoughts on this it was bad timing. As far as where does Kentucky go next, the next head coach, and I have a lot of candidates, but my number one call is Dan Hurley from Connecticut. He's on the verge of going back-to-back. He should be your number one call, period. All he has to do, I don't think he would leave because UConn, in my opinion, is a blue blood. They've got rich history. They've won a lot of titles dating back to 99. They've got 5, potentially could win 6 tonight. On the verge of going back-to-back, first team since Florida to do it. Dan Hurley should be your first call. He is the Rick Pitino from the 90s and the modern era of college basketball. I think Dan Hurley should be your number one choice. After that, then I'll start looking at guys like Nate Oates, maybe a Matt Payne, and maybe a Brad Underwood. But my first call, no matter what, make Dan Hurley say no. If you're Mitch Barnhart, you got to at least make the offer and make him decline that.
Yeah, make him say no.
Wow, I don't know if he would leave his current school.
I don't think he would either.
Can I one last point, Michael? Again, Kentucky being the best job. Nobody thinks Dan Hurley would leave, but it also got out that Dan Hurley, through his agent, has already kind of said, yeah, I'll listen to their call. And Kentucky's more than prepared and has the resources to double, maybe even triple his salary. He's making like $4 million right now at UConn. He can make close to 10, maybe 12 million at Kentucky if they really wanted it. That again, and this guy could be going back to back. And if he leaves, there's no debate. Kentucky's the best job if that happens.
I mean, Trevor said there's a debate. He said Kentucky has one of the strongest arguments out there. Max saying so UConn is better. And we'll also be talking about the national championship game a little later on in the show. So stay tuned with that. It's going to be UConn versus Purdue, 2 powerhouses from the regular season meeting up in the championship game. I'm super excited about that. Shannon, before we move on to some other big news that dropped this weekend in regards to the wrestling world that we're all a fan of, Your reaction to Calipari leaving Kentucky? Is Kentucky in a better spot now that this divorce has happened?
Now, echoing what Josh said, if you've been watching college basketball for like the past 3-4 years, you would probably have saw this move coming. I didn't see Cal going in conference, which was something that is really, really funny that I like. It's kind of like when Rick Pitino went right to Louisville, the rival, and when he was with Kentucky for a while, I was like, "Whoa, you really gonna do this and not die?" So that's man, it was crazy seeing that. But I saw Cal leaving. I thought that Cal was probably going to go to the NBA instead of go to another college basketball team. I think it's good for Kentucky. Kentucky needs new blood in that coaching spot. I had to think a little bit when Josh said his out of pocket statement. I had to think a little bit, but honestly, I can say that if Kentucky's not the best job, it's in the top 3. It's got to be there because so much history from Kentucky has been in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, anybody who has an opportunity to coach Kentucky would go, especially if you're a big time basketball coach. I think that, and this was a kind of a funny thing. My boy, Mr. D, who Mike knows, who he met me with, he said any chance that Bobby Hurley will go to Kentucky out of San Diego State. I don't think Bobby Hurley would make it in the building because of where he went to college. But I think that they would probably put that away, considering the fact that Bobby Hurley's coached some good basketball. And if I were Dan Hurley, you'd be dumb not to listen to Kentucky. Even if you win or lose the national championship, you would be dumb not to listen to Kentucky because Kentucky is a blue blood in college basketball. Kentucky is one of those power programs in college basketball. And that would cement Dan Hurley's legacy, if it hasn't been cemented already, considering what happens tonight. It would be foolish for him not to listen. So I still say that Kentucky's going to be fine. They're going to be back. They will be good. There will be coaches that will want to coach Kentucky because it's Kentucky. The namesake brings coaches to the place because of where they are. And so this is just it's not a small, I don't want to say it's small, but it's just something to get over. You know, it happens. You know, my Tar Heels had to find a replacement. You know, other schools had to find replacements. Other teams had to find replacements. And Kentucky will find a replacement. They're going to be good.
And Josh acknowledging the comments popping up on the YouTube channel. You guys can be a part of the show. Just drop your comment wherever you're watching, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and we'll pop those up on the screen as you watch. And Shannon was talking about a new era. You have to usher a new era in to Kentucky. And it's because it soured between Cal and UK. Trevor from 2 Pointers podcast mentioned it.
And the pressure, fellas, the pressure at Kentucky to win, and not just win. We've seen it. Cal won games. 2 years ago, we were the number 2 overall seed, or sorry, not number 2. We were a 2 seed that had a path to the Final Four, and we lost in the first round, and people wanted to run him out of the building. Rick Pitino won all the time. Tubby Smith was great until the final 2.5 years. And he got ran out of Lexington because the pressure is unlike any other job in the sport because there's such a demand to win at Kentucky. The fan base, they always said you could put a game on Mars and Big Blue Nation gets to Mars to watch the games. There is a pressure to win at Kentucky. It is the Boston Celtics. It is the LA Lakers. It is the New York Yankees with fan base, tradition, expectations to always win and win big. That's why Joe B. Hall, the legendary coach at Kentucky who filled in for Adolph Rupp after Rupp left, said there is a shelf life of 10 years at Kentucky. Anything after 10 years, and you're going to be burning to the ground. Calipari said 10 years. He stayed 15. Look what happened. You basically go to Kentucky. If you win, you become iconic. Dan Hurley, why would he go? Because of tradition, the money. They can pay more money than UConn can offer. And if you win at Kentucky, it is a whole different feeling than winning at UConn. UConn is a blue blood, no offense to them, but when you win at Kentucky, it is different than winning at Connecticut. It just is. So
I don't know. UConn's back to back,
it's
and
different, Michael. I'm telling you. I promise you. If
there
he
might be
wins
a
it-
little homer coming in right
No,
here.
UConn's women's program is better than the men's program.
You ain't been to Chapel Hill lately. I can tell that already, man. You ain't been to Chapel Hill lately, so
Hey, there's several prestigious coaching jobs in the world. Riley commenting, UConn sprayer Purdue money line today. Can't see Purdue covering unless it's a win. Riley, we are going to break down the national title game a little later on, but there was a new champion crowned last night. My entire panel today is not only college basketball fans, where we'll break down the national title game later this episode in this hour, but we're also wrestling fans. And the entire wrestling world was shocked in terms of Roman Reigns losing on day 1,316 to Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes finishes his story, and now we are ushering in a new era. They made that very clear this weekend with WrestleMania. This was the first official WrestleMania under the TKO banner, under Paul Levesque, a.k.a. Triple H. And it's interesting because we thought for years and years, ever since it started back in August of 2020, who's going to beat Roman? Who's going to be built up as that guy? And WWE took Cody Rhodes away from AEW, a company that Cody Rhodes started himself, the first guy to jump from AEW to WWE. And Cody Rhodes, 2 years after his return to WWE, is now the WWE champion. That is wild to think, wild to say. 3-4 years ago, when this started with Roman Reigns in the bloodline, we never thought that would be a sentence we would say. We have a lot of stuff to get to, and I'm sure we're going to break a lot more of this down later on as we go throughout the week. In terms of WrestleMania, I'll have the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast Wednesday afternoon. But I just wanted to ask this question real quick, because now that we know that it was Cody who took out Roman Reigns and the bloodline, was this the right decision business-wise? Was this the right person? And was this the right time to end Roman's title reign at day 1316? Shannon, I'll start with you.
I was gearing to ask you guys what y'all wanted to talk about, and stuff, but since we know what we're going to talk about now, there's a reason why I'm wearing an Atlanta shirt. So I love my Braves, but this is for Cody Rhodes. The more I've thought about it, because I thought Roman was going to come away with the title, I didn't think that they was going to let this bloodline story go, because it's been really, really good. The bloodline has been great. The documentaries I've been watching with Cody's documentary and then Roman Reigns' documentary, I'm just like, man, they're going to continue the bloodline for a while. I thought he was going to go after Bruno Sammartino's record. I really thought it was going to happen. And then Cody Rhodes came, and I'm not going to lie to you. After Cody got that pin and he won, and everybody came out, it was reminiscent of Ric Flair in the 90s when Ric Flair won the World Wrestling Federation Championship, and everyone was in the locker room with Ric Flair at that time. That's what it looked like, and that's what it felt like. I was like, man, this is amazing. I'm still wanting to know where WWE is going to go with this, because I'm still scratching my head about where they're going to go with this. Who's going to be next? Is the bloodline going to say anything? What is Jey Uso going to do now? What is he going to be involved? What's going to happen with him? I really want to know what's going on. Do I think it was the right decision? I'll see. I'll see where we're going with this. I shall see.
And I think time will tell with this.
But I liked it, though. I did. I liked it. I like Cody. I've always liked Cody.
And nothing take away from Cody. Like, I kind of saw him in Lenoir, North Carolina for one of my first ever wrestling shows when I was a kid. He was traveling with his dad who was wrestling. My first ever wrestling show was Dusty Rhodes versus Tully Blanchard in Lenoir, North Carolina back in January 2005. And I've been attached ever since. Our producer, Desmond Johnson, saying, hold it down, fellas. He'll be back tomorrow. He'll be back Tuesday. # we want Roman. And I have to agree. This started with a "We Want Cody" Hashtag Peyton, do you think this was the right person? Did you want Cody?
Oh, absolutely. I wanted Cody. To answer your question, yes, and yeah. This is definitely the right move. It was the right opponent, and it was the right time to end Roman Reigns' reign. No pun intended. It was a great reign. We'll get to Roman here in a minute. It was very long, but it was definitely worth it. The build up to the storyline, it was a 2-year build, and to end it at WrestleMania with all the craziness that happened in that main event, the match started at like 10:05 Eastern time, my time. I put my phone down. I did not touch it. Didn't even think about touching it. Watched that whole match. I was very in tune with what was happening in that main event last night. And I was so excited when John Cena came out with The Rock. There's so many intertwined storylines that you didn't even think of. Me and Josh talked about it last night when we was on the phone with each other, but I went back and watched it. When Cody pinned Roman, you can see it in Roman's face that he was smiling. He was very happy with how this transpired over these last couple of years, and he had a hell of a reign. But Cody is definitely the guy to beat him, because if it wasn't going to be Cody for a second year straight, where does that put Cody on the main roster? Because he's already lost last year's Mania. He lost the night before against the tag team match against Rock and Roman. Where does that put him in the main event picture if he would have lost another one to Roman? And again, if it wasn't him, who else was going to beat him? Rock? No, he's already beaten everybody else in the company, so it's been setting up for Rock, and you really want Rock as your part-time champion right now? Absolutely not. I love heel Rock. It's best stuff he's done. He looked great a couple nights ago. Best stuff he's done in a long time, but I don't want Rock as champion as of now. It's definitely the right time. And I was having this question last night when I was watching this match and hearing the pops for Cody, his entrance, the woe movement, like everything. Like, in his prime right now, is Cody just as big or maybe a slight bigger babyface than John Cena in his prime? Because John Cena in his prime, he had all the kids that loved him, but a lot of the adults did not love him. Majority everybody, the adults are crying. I was getting emotional last night watching Cody. The kids love him. Is he the same level as babyface as John Cena is in his prime? I think he might even be slightly just a little bit better. But I definitely think it was the right move, and it was an emotional roller coaster watching last night.
Wow.
Bringing that up, Peyton, that's actually a really good question, man. Why do you think John Cena even made an entrance into the match to get involved in it? Maybe he feels the same way you do.
Well, I also think Cena, wanted revenge on Solo Sikoa, and it was awesome how they did it with bringing in John Cena, who has history with the Bloodline, having Jay come attack Jimmy at the end of the night, have The Undertaker come out. I thought it was going to be Stone Cold. Instead, they pivot to The Undertaker, but Roman Reigns beat The Undertaker back at WrestleMania 33. Josh, you've mentioned this was the right person. You've been on the track with Cody. So I'm going to throw a curveball at you, because when we talk about the legacy of Roman Reigns and what he was able to do, and you're a Kentucky guy, who had the bigger impact on their own brand? Do you think John Calipari for the Kentucky Wildcats or Roman Reigns for the WWE?
It's pretty, well, actually, I was going to say it's pretty simple, but Cal had a big impact on Kentucky. Like, he got Kentucky back, but Roman has turned this thing into a multi-billion-dollar organization. And I'll take up for Roman. I've never disliked, I've loved this Roman, the new, the tribal chief run. And people, the IWC, brother, he wrestles like 10 matches a year. Have you seen the numbers? This is old school for people like me who grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. We didn't see Hulk Hogan every time. If we did, he was cutting promos. We'd see a big match on pay-per-view every once in a while. Every great once in a while, you'd see him Saturday night's main event. You know what I'm saying? And an actual match. This is how you build, not stars, mega stars. You don't overexpose them. And Roman, every time, people could whine and complain about it, but every time he'd show up, it was a big deal. You'd hear that orchestra play, and you're like, oh, okay, we're in for something special. So Roman, hats off. That was an amazing run, and he's not done. This adds a new layer to the Bloodline, because Saturday night, he accidentally speared The Rock, and you've seen The Rock go, oh my God. So we've got that. We've got maybe now Solo finally says, you let the family down. And now Solo, I think what we're eventually going to see is because there are people, even with Cody, like Peyton mentioned, people love Cody. And I don't think it's a crazy question. I think longevity wise, it's no comparison because Cena did it for so long as a babyface and never turned. But in the short term, yeah, Cody's popularity is up there. But what I'm saying, I think you see people during this last couple of years, people love Roman because he is special. He's an attraction. I think we're going to see as the story progresses that Roman's going to become a huge baby face. By WrestleMania 41 next year, would not be shocked if Roman Reigns is not a mega baby face. And when that music and the orchestra plays, everybody, 60,000, 70, whatever they do, is going to be up in unison acknowledging our tribal chief because he's going to be a baby face. What's the best baby face to start as a lot of times? They start off as heels. Then they're so popular, entertaining as heels, they get flipped to mega baby faces. I think we're in tune for a Roman baby face run, and I think that's going to be special. Fighting Solo, eventually getting to the final boss, The Rock. We get back to that story. But as far as Cody goes, emotional moment. Like, I'm a grown man, but I've always said when pro wrestling's done right, it'll touch you because there's always a little part that you see yourself in that person. We've all, like Cody, been through struggles and not felt like we're good enough and get pushed down the ladder. I mean, we do it all the time, me and Peyton come through ECB, fighting for our spot. And then when we get some of that validation finally, we're like, oh my God, here it is. Like, we got national people looking at us now. Cody did that. And so, yeah, of course, we were emotional. Michael Cole was emotional. Corey Graves was emotional. And then that scene, again, you guys talked about the callbacks, which was awesome. I'm not going to repeat them, but Solo, Cena, The Undertaker, yada, yada. It was well built. It was well built. It was beautifully chaotic. And it was just a beautiful thing. And having all the top baby faces, no offense to underneath, like if R-Truth had been out there, I'd be like, and that's probably something Vince would have done. However, you had the top of the top other baby faces. LA Knight, Randy Orton, CM Punk, John Cena, Seth Rollins, Triple H came out there. The top baby faces came to celebrate Cody's win. And that is stuff that you would have saw in the NWA or WWF back in the 70s and 80s when wrestling really got people's emotional from my era and our dad's era. That was beautifully told. I'm going to say right now, I think it's the best WrestleMania main event we've maybe ever seen. And I think it was the best pro wrestling card in my 30-some years of watching. From top with the cash-in, through Bayley's match, the street fight. Logan Paul was amazing last night again. That dude's so good. He just gets it. And then the main event, I think that was as close to a perfect pro wrestling card as we've ever gotten last night. And I think it supplanted WrestleMania 17 for the greatest WrestleMania of all time.
Wow, that is high praise right there. Yeah, it was incredible.
The long-term storytelling.
Exactly.
Bingo.
All due to that. I mean,
Bingo.
Shannon, to your point real quick, it's not just the top stories anymore either. Like Triple H and company, Nick Khan and that whole company has focused on LA Knight. AJ Styles had a story that made sense. That's why LA Knight came out. He's been built. I mean, even look at Gunther and Sami Zayn. Like everybody, Bayley and Io with the damage control, like everything on WrestleMania both nights had stories and backstories that have been built for years now, for a year and a half, 2 years since Triple H got the pin. And it culminated last night. And then tonight starts a new story to next year's WrestleMania. And we have extreme faith. If we had said 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, the WWE, when they were at a low point with Vince McMahon, that we would all be feeling this great and cannot wait week to week to watch, we would have laughed. Like none of us would believe it. But Triple H immediately flipped it. We're back to calling it pro wrestling. We're doing pro wrestling things. We've got major stars. It's just a fun time to be a pro wrestling fan again.
And Josh, I wanted to touch on that because, people ask, why do you cover wrestling and why is ESPN covering wrestling? Why is Pat McAfee doing an entire show based around WrestleMania in Philadelphia? And it's because we're doing our best numbers right now. Over 30 people are watching us live during their lunch break. We don't take your time lightly, and it's absolutely incredible. You guys can be a part of the show, comment, just like Desmond Johnson, who will be back tomorrow to talk about the Raw After Mania. Last year's Raw After Mania was such a huge letdown because Vince wanted to take control, and TKO saw that. So when the sale happened, they kind of pushed Vince out, and Vince also pushed himself out in a certain way. But with Triple H having full creative control over WWE and Monday Night Raw, this is going to be incredible. If you guys are not a wrestling fan and you're watching, first of all, thank you. But I would highly recommend you guys go and watch WrestleMania from this past weekend, both nights. I highly recommend you watch Raw After Mania tonight at 8 on the USA Network. It is top notch. It's best storytelling, and we'll cover a lot of it tomorrow on Out of Pocket with Top Rope Tuesday, and we'll start back at our usual time, and unless something crazy happens, we'll start at 12:30, and it's 12:30 right now. So we're at the halfway point on this supersized Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. And again, you can comment and be a part of the show just like Dez did. But I wanted to switch the focus because we are in Tobacco Road country. And what that means is this past weekend during the Final Four, the final ACC team exited. NC State lost to Purdue. Purdue's going to play UConn, and we're going to break that game down here in just a moment. But I wanted to recap NC State's season. And Shannon, I'll start with you. What did you think about State's run this March Madness? How did you feel when it ended? And what do you think this NC State team looks like going into next year?
This is coming from a rival right here as a Carolina Tar Heel. I was so happy seeing NC State actually make a run to the Final Four. I'm like Diz said on the show many times, I got friends who are big NC State fans, and they're younger than me or they're older than I am, and they haven't seen NC State do a lot. And this was something that they got to see. It was in their lifetime. It was amazing for them. It's just been a wonderful year. I hate what happened with them in Purdue. I did see it coming. I really did. And I wish that I was wrong. My heart wished that I was wrong because I would have liked to have seen NC State go to the national championship. But they had a decorated crew. They turned it around at the tail end of the year, starting with the ACC championship, getting in there. That survive or die mentality was the biggest thing for them, and that helped them out. They came together as a team. Kevin Keats has his job, and I believe Kevin Keats is probably going to have his job for a little bit more time than what we thought he would. And that was just amazing for NC State. Hats off to them. The Jimmy V magic was there. Jimmy V is probably bragging in heaven right now, and that was big for them. Hate to see the exit. Next year now, on the other hand, they had graduate students as their starters. I think 4 out of their 5 starters were graduate students. And with the NIL and all that going on, there's a possibility that they will have to do some rebuilding. They will have to do some rebuilding. I think Kevin Keats is probably going to get more recruits this year, considering the fact that they had a storied run this year, and Kevin Keats has coached his tail off, had a group of hustlers. But they'll have to rebuild it because they got expectations now. So that comes with another thing. Coming with a Duke fan, a Kentucky guy. Now NC State has expectations. They have expectations now. So let's see what goes on. Let's see what happens for the year because the expectations are coming with you being a Final Four team. So NC State, good luck next year.
And Trevor was on the supersized episode of Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Friday, and it was so well received and all the stuff this past weekend. We've been doing a supersized Out of Pocket this hour. If you've missed anything, you can go back and watch on demand, but we'll be here till 1 o'clock today. Trevor, being a big NC State guy, already picked up a big portal, big man from Louisville in the Final Four run. KK will build on this. Kevin Keats, could replace DJ Burns, who's hoping to start an NBA career. But Peyton, you've been on Out of Pocket, I believe, every week since we returned last month. What was your reaction to NC State losing? And do you think they can build on the momentum they got this year?
Yeah, they can definitely build on this momentum. Obviously, they're going to lose DJ Burns. They're going to lose a couple more players from this season, but Trevor already mentioned it. They did get Brandon Huntley Hatfield, who's a former 5-star, probably all around Louisville's best player last year. He'll help replace that. It's going to be a completely different player than what DJ Burns was. DJ Burns is obviously more physical, better footwork. But Hatfield has the capability. He's more athletic. He can shoot from the outside if needed. So bring a little bit of versatility to Kevin Keats' offense next year for NC State. So I do expect them to have some expectations coming into the next year. Obviously, the transfer portal is hot. There's a lot of good kids out there that are still available for them to get, and we'll see who comes back for them this year. But as far as the run, it was a hell of a run. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, even if I wasn't, or even me and Trev wasn't doing everything college basketball almost every single week. I love runs like this. I loved when Loyola Chicago went to the Final Four about 3 years. 2018, whatever year that was. I love runs like this where you don't really expect it and you have a team have to come through so much adversity to make a run like that is incredible. This whole run started, they beat Louisville in the first round of the ACC tournament and they almost lost that game. If people go back in time to that game, they were down heading into the second half, and they were down at some point in this second half, came back, ended up winning that game, fought through it adversity. They beat Syracuse, a tough Syracuse team in the second round, and then 3 straight wins against the top 3 seeds in the ACC tournament to punch their ticket. Great story. Then they lose to they beat Texas Tech, which I was 50-50 on that game. They had the privilege of playing against Oakland and not playing against a team like Kentucky. There you go, Trev. L's up. He knows the deal. Let's go, Trev. Wolfpack, I'll get you back, homie. They had the privilege of playing against Oakland and not Kentucky, which I do think they matched up well against the Cats. And then I thought the run was going to be over against Marquette. I came on this show with you, Michael, me, you, and I forgot who else was one. Obviously, Dez, and I forgot who else was one at that time. But I came on, I'm like, Marquette's going to beat them. This is going to be the game that Marquette is just going to run through them. And then NC State pretty much handled business and never looked back from then. Like, this Final Four run, like, we'll remember this. I'll remember this specifically being me and Trevor being a close advocates and co-workers from Everything College Basketball. It's a hell of a run. Love me some DJ Burns, the biggest babyface in the country. Love it. Congrats to Kevin Keats. He got himself 2 years after winning the ACC tournament. We'll see if they can build on this success for next year. Hats off to them. And like Trev, go Wolfpack.
Hey, he's throwing up the Wolfpack, also known as the Too Sweet. If you grew up as an NWO or wrestling fan, you know what that's all about. Or even if you just grew up in the 90s, like wrestling was so popular, I think wrestling will get to that level of popularity, if not soar past it in this new Triple H era. We talked a little bit about WrestleMania, but when it comes to this weekend, Purdue beat NC State, UConn beat Alabama, and so it's going to be Purdue versus UConn in the national championship game. But we've talked a little bit about what NC State season was. Josh, what did you take away? You can touch on the UConn game or the Purdue game. Who were you more impressed with in terms of getting to the national championship game?
Look, real quick on NC State, I told Trev this whole run, he used to get mad at me because he's very superstitious. And I would tell him, man, I got a good feeling about this. And, of course, I was right. I didn't tell him against Purdue because I did think Purdue was going to win. But I did let him know before the start of the game. No matter what happens tonight back on Saturday, it's been an amazing ride that him and his ilk have never got to see. So they should always hold on to that. As far as Kevin Keats, real quick, it is hard to repeat that, especially when you have to take 5-6 months off and have to do it again. The one thing I hope for Kevin Keats is he's learned to trust his intuition. Don't overthink it. I think a lot of times in games in the ACC play, he overthought things and would maybe sub guys out that he should have kept in or whatever. In the during this run during March, he just let it go. It was do or die for his job. He let it go. He kept his best players out. They played free. Hopefully he carries that lesson into next year and he'll be served well for it. UConn. I mean, Purdue, again, I expected them to beat North Carolina State. I also expected, of course, UConn to beat Alabama. But the reason UConn's so scary and so good, Alabama played a pretty good game. They were like 8 of 11 from 3 in the first half, and we're still down 2. UConn didn't play their greatest game. Alabama played a pretty good game, and Connecticut still beat them by double digits. UConn's scary. They're absolutely scary because they can play their B- game and still beat you. They are terrifying for that reason. They were more impressive than Purdue was, in my opinion.
Well, also with that being said, like UConn went on that 30-0 run back at the Elite Eight, and it was like watching a video game. Real quick, Booking Like a Mark. They do great stuff. If you have not listened to their podcast, they do phenomenal work. He said, I'm guessing I missed the WrestleMania part of this episode. This will be available on demand to go back and listen to it, but also stay tuned because at the end of the show, since it is a supersized Out of Pocket, we're doing a supersized That Aged Well, and we're going to touch on the national title game and Raw After Mania and a little bit of wrestling. So stay tuned till the end of the episode if you're watching wrestling. We're over 50 people right now watching live on all our social media channels. Be a part of the show just like Josh Scott is, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. But we are wanting to talk about this national championship game. Shannon, UConn versus Purdue tonight. How do you see this going? And what do you think are the key aspects of this game? Hold your prediction, by the way. Hold your prediction till That Aged Well segment. Just tell me what you think is going to take for both of these teams to show up tonight.
Now the biggest thing for Purdue will have to be the boards. They have to maintain the boards and they have to rebound, which they have the best rebounder in the nation in Josh Eady. Josh Eady is a wonderful glass clearer, offense and defense, but also they have to maintain the boards. UConn's a fast squad. UConn likes to get down the court. They like to get there. I think that if they maintain those boards, they have a chance to win. Now, UConn, the other end with them is UConn has to keep pouring it on. They have to pour it on the offensive end. UConn defends the paint better than I would say Purdue does. They defend the paint a lot better. They have to maintain that paint. They have to make sure that Zach Edey doesn't take that game because they got to take the ball to Zach Edey's hands with his back to the basket. UConn does that. I think UConn's going to win it. They have to keep it out of his hands, and they got to maintain that paint. And Purdue has to maintain the boards.
And that is huge because if you guys remember watching Friday's supersize episode of Out of Pocket, Braxton Critcher was on for the first time, and he broke the news while we were on air of Zach Edey win the college basketball's Naismith National Player of the Year award. So UConn does not have an easy task. Peyton, what do you think are the keys for the game tonight that's for all the marbles?
Well, for UConn, I'll start with them. I think their guards have to play well. Tristan Newton has not looked good in these last couple of games. He's been kind of off, and he's looked really good all season long. He's very capable of having a type of performance like a 15 points with like 5 assists and a couple steals. He's very capable of doing that. I think he has to play well. For UConn, the plan is simple. Just be UConn. Be the team that you were all season long. You have not played a close game yet in this tournament. Alabama gave you a game. They hit 8 threes in the first half, and UConn was still up 3 points heading into the second half, and they ended up winning by double digits. And they didn't really play their A+ game. Like, they can play a B- game and still beat majority of the teams in the country. It's going to take more effort than that to play against Purdue. It's the best 2 teams in the country. It's been a while since we've had this 2 best teams fighting for a chance to win the national title. It's been a while for that. As far as Purdue goes, it starts with the guard play. The 2 biggest reasons why Purdue is in the national title game and why they lost in the first round last year, the 2 biggest differences. 1, their guards are way better than what they were last year. 2, they shoot a way better percentage from 3 than they did last year. They shot 32% from 3 last season. They're shooting over 40% from 3 this season. That's a huge jump. Those 2 has been the biggest difference maker. Lance Jones played really, really well against NC State. He had 14 points. I think look for him to come off the bench and have a big performance. And if you're Zach Edey, I think Zach Edey has a chance to neutralize Klingon because they are the best team in the country when drawing fouls. And if Klingon is off the floor, they have no answer for Zach Edey whatsoever. And it is barbecue chicken at that point. Give the ball to Edey and let him go. And if you try to double down, guess what? He'll kick it out to Braden Smith. He'll kick it out to Fletcher Loyal. He'll kick it out to one of those guards, Mason Gillis, and they'll hit a big shot. I think this game's going to be very intriguing, but for both teams, guard play is going to be really key. The pace of play, I think if Purdue, you want to slow the pace down. You don't want to play a high tempo. The last two teams, Illinois and Alabama, played up tempo. They end up running out of gas. You want to have momentum for those last 4 minutes. You want to be able to have all the energy you're going to need to hit those big shots in the last 4 minutes. This game's going to be very intriguing. I'm very excited for it, but I think those are the keys for both teams.
Now, Trevor doing great work with 2 Pointers Podcast. He's been watching all episode. He says foul trouble for Klingon or not, Samson Johnson is the X factor. If you're one of the nearly 60 people watching live on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and all our social media channels, comment and be a part of the show. We want to show you guys love like we've been showing Trevor some love. Josh, we got about 15 more minutes here in the show, but what is your key factors for tonight's national championship game between UConn and Purdue? Again, we'll hold our predictions to the end of the show, as well as what we're going to think happens tonight on the Raw after Mania. So what's your key factors for the game?
Well, I'll make it quick since we're time crunched here. It's coming down to guard play because Klingon's looked amazing during this tournament run, but Zach Edey is a reigning 2-time defending National Player of the Year for a reason. They're going to have to double him like everybody else has, try to push the Edey off the block, but he can still hurt you 10 feet away. I didn't think he could, but he's done it all tournament so far. And plus, he gets to his spots and draws fouls like nobody else. Trev mentioned Samson Johnson. If Samson Johnson's on Zach Edey, that is a brutal, brutal matchup. I think the UConn bigs have to run the floor. They're going to have to beat Edey down the floor, wear him out, because neither one of their bigs really step out and shoot threes, which is kind of prototypical how you have to beat Zach Edey in Purdue, make him come away from the rim. UConn's bigs don't do that. So I think it comes down to guard play, and I'm looking for a guy like Alex Hairband. At that 3-4 spot, he can play both of them. Steps out, hits jump shots. He needs to get in, put his nose in, get some offensive rebounds, extra possessions. And then Peyton mentioned it, the guards from UConn, Newton, Castle, all those. That's Cam Spencer. Purdue has to stop Cam Spencer because if he gets going, he is their emotional leader, and he will fire them up and start creating buckets out of nowhere. Purdue needs to kind of limit Cam Spencer, and actually it might not be the worst to let Tristan Newton go for a 30 piece because when they've lost this year, he's went for 25 or 30, but it slows everybody else's, ability to score down. So it might not be the worst game plan to maybe kind of let him go off, but shut everybody else down. Purdue's guards, Braden Smith's been phenomenal. The jump from freshman to sophomore year, he's doing everything, playmaking. He's had games where he's had 15 assists this year with 20 points. He's going to be great. I look for Purdue. Lance Jones, Fletcher Lure have to make shots. They just have to. And if you get a chance to let's say they go up early, like, 11-3 or 11-4 against UConn, they have to extend that lead because as we've seen, if you don't kill UConn, they will come back to bury you. If Purdue has the opportunity to put the knife in Purdue or UConn's heart, they have to do it or else UConn's going to make them pay for it. We'll say that. But I think it comes down to the backcourt because I worry about Klingon and Samson Johnson because Edey, no matter what, is going to get you in foul trouble. So I think it's going to come down to the UConn Purdue guards who wins that matchup.
Now, it's interesting you note, like, you have to put the dagger in UConn's heart. And I go back to that Elite 8 game, which honestly, that 30-0 run right at the end of the first half into the second half is one of the greatest runs in a game I have ever seen, college or pro. It is absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't watched, just go to the YouTube after this episode of Out of Pocket and just look at those highlights because it's like a video game. And I don't think I could even do that on a video game, even if I was playing on rookie mode with the all-time Miami Heat squad, which is my go-to, obviously, when I'm playing a little 2K. It's going to be a wild game. It's going to be super exciting. And oh my goodness, like Zachy 4+ rebounds is minus 50,000. According to Trevor. Hopefully that's a DraftKings number right there because Tobacco Road Sports Radio is sponsored by DraftKings and a lot of our episodes are as well. But speaking of we got about 10 minutes left here in the show. Hopefully you guys got that hour lunch break with us and we're super excited that you guys have been here because it is a supersized episode of Out of Pocket, which means not one, but because we have a lot to look forward to tonight, we have 2 questions for That Aged Well. It's your favorite segment at the end of each Out of Pocket episode where we predict something that happens tonight, tomorrow, or sometime in the future. But with a huge night in store for us, I think it's time to ask everybody, when it comes to the Raw after Mania, okay? The other question will be predicting our national champion. But when it comes to the Raw after Mania, what is your bold prediction? What you want to see tonight? Peyton, I'll start with you.
Not gonna lie, I thought you were gonna say when it comes crashing down and the host inside. That's what I thought you was going with that. But other than that, I have two predictions for this segment here. I think there's going to be two debuts on Raw. I think Carmelo Hayes debuts tonight on Raw. He just lost to Trick Williams at Stand and Deliver. Great match. I think his time in NXT is done. He had a hell of a career down there. It's time for him to move up to the main roster, and I think he gets called up on Raw tonight. My other prediction, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I'm kind of wanting to happen. I think storyline-wise, it makes sense. I have a feeling I'm about to take Josh's.
Yeah, you are. I know where you're going.
Jacob Fatu debuts.
Yeah!
Jacob Fatu debuts tonight. I have a feeling with this whole bloodline drama and the fact that they look really weak right now. Jimmy Uso lost to Jay, and obviously Roman lost to Cody. Roman and the bloodline probably feel like they need to be stronger. And what's a better way to add another Samoan, Jacob Fatu, He's really good. I ain't gonna say the word I will want to, but he's really freaking good. I think he debuts tonight and he joins the bloodline in some shape or form, or they plant the seeds for him to join the bloodline at some point.
Peyton, you got me excited. Don, join us. What's up, Don?
What up, Don?
I see Don's also commented his prediction for the national title game, which we'll get to here in just a couple minutes, and we'll post it on the screen for you. But Shannon, when it comes to Raw after Mania, what's your bold prediction for tonight's show?
I like what Peyton had to say, but I think this is gonna, WrestleMania is basically the season finale, and then we go into a new season basically for the WWE. But I think that Gunther asserts himself into the world title picture tonight. I think that's going to be what's going on. Gunther dropped the title to Sami Zayn. I thought that was a little bit, I didn't think that was going to happen. I really didn't think it was going to, but I think Gunther's going to assert himself into the title picture somehow, some way.
All right, Josh, what's your bold prediction for tonight?
I tell you what, I speak too much around Peyton because he knew what I was going to say. I do think Jacob Fatu, you have not seen him. This dude's like 320, 330 pounds, does moonsaults, aggressive, another Samoan. I think he shows up tonight. If not tonight, on SmackDown on Friday. He's showing up this week at some point. And I'll go one step further. I think Tama Tonga also joins the bloodline. There's been rumors that he signed with the WWE. He's not technically a part of the bloodline, but they've always considered him and Haku, cousins and all that. So it makes sense. I think we see Jacob Fatu. I think we see Tama Tonga, and we see the bloodline kind of pick themselves over the ashes here. And this is how we kickstart the next chapter of this story of the bloodline. And then I would love to say Cody, we get somewhat of a definitive challenger. I mean, it's too easy to say Seth Rollins turns on him. I don't think that's happening. But yeah, I'll say Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, the bloodline probably stands tall tonight with new members.
Wow, that is pretty impressive. Derek Pauly's going to be at the SmackDown after Mania, so he's hoping some surprises happen there as well. Trevor loved the Samoan wrestling growing up. It is a dynasty right now.
Riley, I am, by the way. I
am. My prediction right here is Peyton brought up Carmelo Hayes. I think Trick Williams debuts tonight on Monday Night Raw because he is so over with the crowd. If it's starting a new era, I don't think you need to keep Trick Williams in NXT. So I'm super excited with that. Booking like a mark. Again, they do incredible stuff with both top belts being on Raw and this being a new era. Could we see a draft announced tonight? My prediction right there is we're going to have a draft here in the next couple weeks.
Triple H confirmed that on Logan Paul's podcast, I think Friday. Because Logan had mentioned he wants to be on Raw by the Netflix deal in January. He said, move me to Raw. And Triple H mentioned to him, he said, we got a draft coming up in a month. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So
it's coming.
We'll definitely get a draft, and who knows, like, congrats to Damian Priest, by the way. Incredible Money in the Bank run. Judgment Day has been absolutely incredible. And before we get into our national championship predictions, we had a question come in, and people get to comment and be a part of the show. We are over 60 live viewers. This is the peak of our show the entire day. So thank you guys. Be a part of the show. Just like Riley, who hates to change the subject, but Josh, are you going to put your name in for the next Kentucky Wildcats coach? Can you confirm or deny on Out of Pocket Live right now?
Well, my legal team consisting of Peyton, Phil, and Trevor take care of the details right now, but I won't confirm, but I also won't deny it either.
Wow. So we gotta keep our eye on that development right now. But here's our second question for that age well. I promise not one, but two for the Supersize Out Pocket in the final couple minutes of the show live on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel, which you can subscribe and catch us 4 days a week on. I got to ask you guys, who is winning the national championship? Peyton, I'm going to put you on the spot first. Who do you got tonight? Purdue, UConn, and what's your final score?
Well, this is going to really make Riley Palmer mad, him being an Indiana fan, but bowl up. Purdue wins, gets the first national title. I'm very confident in this. I think UConn has played really well all season long, and I definitely think they are the best team in the country, but sometimes the best teams doesn't always win when it matters. They have dominated this tournament, but they have not faced a team like Purdue who can match up with Donovan Clingan, and if you can get Clingan off the floor and get him in foul trouble, it's going to be really hard for UConn to overcome Zach Edey. And let's face it, whether it should be like this way or shouldn't be like this way, Zach Edey's not going to get in foul trouble. It's just, that's how it is. It's how it's been all season long, whether it's the right way or the wrong way. Like, he's just not going to get in foul trouble. He has a chance to get Donovan Clingan in foul trouble, and don't do that to me. You went long early over there. I think Purdue wins this game. I think it's going to be an entertaining one. I think the guards play a big factor in that. Purdue, bowl up.
Wow. So Peyton's taking Purdue, as is Don Lucas. Shannon, what's your prediction? Who wins and what's the final score?
Yeah, I know we're talking about finishing stories here, but there's another story that was finished in college basketball this year, and that was the women. USC, South Carolina, was an undefeated squad. They were the best squad in the nation consistently, and they won the women's national championship. I see Purdue playing a wonderful game in the first half. I see them doing very, very well in the first half, keeping it close. But I think they're going to run out of gas at the tail end of it. UConn will not run away with this game. They will not beat a Purdue squad by 20 points. They won't beat them by 15. I see UConn beating them by maybe 5. No more than 5 points. This is going to be a hard game. It's going to be a tough game. I think that UConn team is like that 90s UNLV team. They are too daggum strong. They're put together too much. They've got the mind frame. Purdue has a lot to prove after losing to a 16 seed in the tournament last year. I know that usually turns around to a national title. As the Virginia Cavaliers, how that went, but they're not the Virginia Cavaliers of that time. I think UConn is going to pull it away by no more than 5 points.
So Shannon's got UConn, Peyton's got Purdue. We are over 70 live viewers right now. This is the peak of our stream right now. We only have a minute left. So if you haven't, go follow us on Instagram at outpocket_TRSR. Josh, in our last minute, who do you got today? Purdue or UConn?
Quick history lesson, tie it back in the top of the show. Kentucky 96 wins the title. They get back to the national title game in 97, lose in overtime to Arizona. Rick Pitino bolts. UConn wins the title last year. They get back to the national title game. They're going to lose in overtime to Purdue. It's going to be an ugly game because all the fouls, two very physical teams. But Zach Edey is going to put UConn in very compromised positions. Purdue guards makes enough shots. Purdue wins in overtime in an ugly kind of game, physical game. 72-69, Boilers, first-time national champions. And then Dan Hurley, to pull the Rick Pitino, as Peyton said, he's the young Rick Pitino. After this, he bolts to take Kentucky. Boiler up.
Okay, so the Burtons got the Boilermakers. Don saying even UNLV couldn't repeat. Could we see UConn actually repeat tonight? For my prediction, I pick Purdue to win in my March Madness bracket. I usually don't pick the winner. Usually they're out by the first weekend. So let me stick with the prediction I've done the entire March Madness bracket. Let me get Purdue. They didn't end NC State's miraculous run for nothing. Sorry about Trevor. He says, history is weird. I hate it. Guys, thank you. We had so many people watching our live stream right now. Go subscribe to the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel. Also, go follow us on Instagram at outpocket_TRSR. We will be back tomorrow at 12:30. Producer Desmond Johnson will be joining us. We'll be doing Top Rope Tuesday. But for myself, Michael Davis, Josh Burton, Peyton Burton from Everything College Basketball, and my co-host from the Cat Cave, Shannon Smith at podcast_SME. It's been Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. And we will see you tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time.